joining us now, Craig Shirley. And I'm just delighted he's with us. He's one of my all-time favorite individuals, writer, thinker, biographer. Rendezvous with Destiny, of course, Reagan's Revolution, and The Last Act, his new book, just about to be released on the final years of President Ronald Reagan, and he joins us now. Craig, how are you?
Hi, Laura. How are you?
I'm very well, and I predicted this would happen. That there would be a point in time where there was a switch in one of these candidates, and there's a switch that was turned on that would kind of happen. It kind of would happen the way it happened last night with Carson. Tell me where I might be going wrong, and tell me.
No, I think you're right. As a matter of fact, I was listening to you earlier talking about Haley Barbour, and I'm reminded that Haley, in 1976, supported Gerald Ford over Ronald Reagan, and in 1980, he supported John Connally over Ronald Reagan. And Connally, for a time, went hard after Reagan personally, and was seen as a proxy for many for other, like Howard Baker and other more moderate challengers. By going after Reagan, maybe he could make a deal later with somebody else if they got the nomination. So, politics repeats itself, as does many things in life.
The stalking horse, that's what some people are referring to Ben Carson as on Twitter right now. He's a stalking horse for Jeb because, of course, when you're not attacking Bushism, you're helping Jeb, right? You're going to help that, that network of a lot of money. And yesterday, Jeb was raising money in a conference call with Chinese expats. You can't even make up that. So
make it up.
Yeah, Trump and Cruz are at Capitol Hill with thousands of people gathered, just regular Americans, right?
Yeah. And he did it from Burning Tree Country Club.
Right. And Bush did. You mean, yeah? But Trump and Cruz are on Capitol Hill, and even people like Carson, they're at events with real people and so forth. Meanwhile, Jeb's on the phone to Americans living in China, making an enormous amount of money off China. You can't even make this up. I mean,
who, by the way, escape federal income taxes because they earn money overseas.
Oh, they're all going to be tagged in Jeb's new plan, though, Craig. Don't worry about it. They're all going to come down.
Well, the problem with that, I haven't studied the plan closely. It sounds interesting. The problem with Jeb's plan is Jeb's name is on it.
Well, the Bush network has been itching to get back into power. We know that. Everyone from Pete Wehner over at Commentary to lots of these guys who were at the Justice Department who wanted to get federal judgeships.
Wolfowitz.
Yeah, Wolfowitz. They all want to be back in power, and they've all been itching to make it all right again. They want to redo Bush 43 and bring that entire Bush legacy back into clear focus. And Jeb is the guy to do that. And I am not kidding you. And I just tweeted out something, Craig. And my tweet was, have they already started printing the racial flyers and recording the racial robocalls? Because that's what they did to Chris McDaniel in Mississippi.
Well, that's what Bush 41 did in 1988 to Mike Dukakis too.
Yeah, with the Willie Horton ad.
Right.
So Bushism, will it be litigated sufficiently, you think, in a campaign where just except Trump, pretty much nobody is really talking about Bushism and what it did to the Republican Party, the conservative movement, and obviously the country?
Well, we haven't even started the debate over Bushism and its legacy. I think it's only going to start this fall in earnest. And maybe it's going to start today with Scott Walker's speech at Eureka, where he's taking on the Washington establishment and Washington corruption. Because you cannot discuss Bushism without discussing the implications of Bushism, which has basically led to two big government parties in America today, which led to the outbreak of the Tea Party, which led to the outbreak of Donald Trump. And that's why he is, part of American conservatism requires imagination. It required some conservatives to imagine a former grade B actor becoming president of the United States. It required American conservatives to imagine a country where slaves were freed or women had universal suffrage. American conservatism is, in fact, more progressive than American liberalism because it sees possibilities of expanding human freedom, which is not what liberalism is about. Liberalism is about statism, and liberalism ultimately is what has led to two big parties in America today, is that corporate statism and the Washington buddy system.
GOP voters question whether Jeb agrees more with Hillary than with them. Remember my old Clush 2016? What difference does it make? Well, Rasmussen seems to bear that out. 36% of likely Republican voters believe Bush has more in common with Clinton, the Democratic frontrunner, than with the average GOP
Isn't that
voter.
Astonishing?
Yeah, 36%.
1 in 3. These aren't just registered Republicans. These are primary voters.
Yeah, most likely voters.
Yeah, astonishing. And that says, I mean, I can't sum up any better the problem with Bush and with big government republicanism than 33% of Republican primary voters see that as the problem.
41% of Republicans still think Bush is likely to be the party's nominee, but that's down 15 points from 56% in June.
Right.
And by comparison, 48% of Dems think Bush will be the Republican nominee. 13% say it's very unlikely. But now 66% of likely Republican voters think Trump is likely to be the presidential nominee. Wow, yeah. That's a huge jump. 26% said it's very unlikely.
And that goes to my earlier point about imagination. Is that there? I've watched, listened to you and Newt and some others. Is that you've demonstrated an ability of American conservatism, which is about imagination, to see Donald Trump in a different guise than just as a businessman, and that maybe he's the continuation of American conservatism, which is always about challenging the status quo, and that he really is the only candidate right now, the only leading candidate right now who is actually challenging the status quo.
Just so people, a lot of people are emailing me and asking me to play that robocall that was recorded in Mississippi. This is part of the effort, and much of it was led by Haley Barbour's consulting organization to prop up Thad Cochran, the septuagenarian senator who is obviously just this tool of the establishment. He's a nice man, but he's been around for decades, and it was time to turn the page. They had that runoff election. Remember, they had the runoff in the primary?
Right.
And so what happened was, in the days before the runoff vote, there was an automated message appearing to target black Democrat voters in Mississippi, and the Voice claims that McDaniel would lead to more obstruction and create a disrespectful treatment to the nation's first black president.
Hello, neighbors. The time has come to make a stand and say no to the Tea Party, no to their obstruction, no to their disrespectful treatment of the first African-American president. If we do nothing, Tea Party candidate Chris McDaniel wins and causes even more problems for President Obama.
Experts, some of them election experts, said that it's technically illegal for voters affiliated with an opposing party to vote in another party's primary in Mississippi. Cochran's campaign denied they had any connection with the robocall, but they don't have to because it can be an outside consulting group
right.
Or an outside.
But there was no investigation, no prosecution.
No prosecution, no nothing.
Look, we have to bear in mind always the first rule of the bureaucracy is to defend the bureaucracy. Those in power must stay in power. I'm reminded of the novel 1984 where the citizen Winston Smith is in room 101, and O'Brien, the party member, is beating the hell out of him. And he convinces him. He holds up 4 fingers. He says, how many fingers am I holding? He says 4. No, he hits him again. No, you're holding 5. Even though he's holding up 4 fingers, those in power can convince you of anything.
One of the classic tools of the Bush network is Pete Wehner, and I know you're friends with Pete, and I used to know him. I don't really know him much anymore, but he obviously wants to get back in the White House, very friendly with the Bushes, and he's a decent writer, but I think he has 2,000 followers on Twitter. I mean, I'm not giving him more attention than he's ever gotten in his life, but
yeah, he ought to send you flowers or something.
He says, while the criteria for identifying a genuine demagogue vary, what I have in mind is a political leader who appeals to emotions rather than reason and to people's fears and prejudices. Prejudices, hear that? Prejudices. It's worth noting that the demagogue, the embodiment of anti-reason, is what the American founders feared. Indeed, the founders designed a system of government that was meant to prevent the rise of the demagogues. What's your response to that?
First of all, he's got history exactly wrong. The founders wanted a system whereby, first of all, there weren't political parties, but it was constantly challenging the status quo. Benjamin Rush wrote to Thomas Paine, he said, at the conclusion of the war, he said the war is over, but the revolution goes on, which meant that the founding fathers wanted the constant challenge to the status quo, and Donald Trump actually falls in that dialectic history.
Well, and I would also answer, perhaps there are other questions that Mr. Wehner might want to consider. Like, did the framers envision a two-party system where both parties agreed on fundamental questions that the people never got a say on?
Yes, exactly.
Whether it's open borders, mass importation of indigents, mass displacement of American workers, global trade deals that end up cheating the American people of opportunity and jobs with almost no repercussions for the cheaters. Is that what the framers envisioned, too?
No, which, by the way, if you take Wehner's column and you inserted it back in 1979, and then take out Donald Trump and insert Ronald Reagan, George F. Will was writing, and many other establishment Republicans were writing exactly the same thing about Ronald Reagan, that he was a demagogue, that he was dangerous, that he didn't know anything, he didn't understand the ways of Washington. They said precisely the same things about Reagan in the 70s that they're now saying about Trump.
Craig Shirley, when does your book come out, the official date that it comes out?
October 13th.
Okay, well, you're coming on. We're doing a huge push for your book.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll talk about applying the Spanish Inquisition to the establishment Republicans.
I love it. So we're going to have you on. We're going to give away copies of Craig's book. Maybe even a couple of days before the book comes out, we'll do that.
Sure.
We'll do a fun little Ronald Reagan retrospective, and we always think of what would Reagan do, what would Reagan think about what's happened to the country, where he would be. I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. Craig and I will both be at the Reagan Library debate next week.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to that. And are we sitting near each other?
Yes. The three of us are sitting together.
Are you sneaking in the gin and tonics, or how's that?
Cognac.
Okay, cognac. Okay, we're going right to that. I'll bring the Armagnac. You bring the cognac, and we'll have a really bad hangover. Craig, it's great.
So we'll have a good time getting there.
Oh, no, it'll be fun. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Laura.
All right, we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show on LifeZet.com. In Trump, Echoes of Reagan by Craig Shirley. You want to read the piece? Click over to the Polizet box on LifeZet.com, and you go to that Polizet vertical. Craig's piece is one of the most popular pieces on the website right now. So, In Trump, Echoes of Reagan.